Hi, I am Assistant Editor Madhurita Goswami with ThePrint, and I am here with journalist Gideon Levy from Haaretz, and I'm going to ask him a few questions on the Gaza conflict. Can you tell me, sir, like Haaretz is no longer receiving government aid, is it, from the Netanyahu government? There was a ban on the paper, right?
Say it again.
Haaretz is not
Yes.
receiving
Yeah.
government.
Sure. I didn't get it. Sure.
Huh.
No, the government decided to not to. It's not aid. No newspaper gets aid from the government.
Advertisements, yeah.
Advertisement and subscriptions. They are trying to close us down through aiming at our pockets, but it will not help them. Haaretz is well established, and we can manage also without the money of the government. And in many ways, maybe it's even good not to depend on the government. We never did depend on the government. Obviously, it makes things harder. And I guess they'll take more measures against Haaretz down the road. But that's the government.
And can you tell me about like the onslaught on journalists, on the bigger picture during this conflict that has emerged? Also in the United States, because we saw how Sam Husseini and then Blumenthal was taken out of Blinken's
Sure.
press conference.
Sure.
So if you could give us a general idea of what's been happening.
So first of all, my first accusation is toward the Israeli media. Israeli media didn't report about Gaza, almost nothing. Now, it's not that anyone put pressure on the Israeli media not to show Gaza. The Israeli media is doing it voluntarily as a self-censorship because they know that the Israelis don't want to see Gaza. And they don't have the guts to bother them. But that's not journalism. This is propaganda. And in this war, Israeli media, most of it, not all of it, Haaretz for sure not, but most of it avoided any harsh pictures, any heartbreaking pictures, which are so many in Gaza, from the Israelis. So any Indian saw more than an average Israeli. And this, in my view, is criminal because this is betraying our mission. Our first mission is to inform and to inform the full truth. The Israeli media as a whole does not do it in this war. The Western media is, first of all, we have the problem that no Western journalist was allowed into Gaza and still is not allowed. It is very problematic when you can't cover a war from the ground. I hope it will change. I don't see it changing. There must be much more pressure of the international media over Israel and Egypt to let journalists in and to see what really happened there, because we didn't. But by and large, I think the international media made a better role than the Israeli media. Still, if you live in Europe, in the United States, I guess also in your country, you can get a sense what happened in Gaza.
Can you tell me a little bit about the US brokered ceasefire and how it will pan out in the coming days? We have been hearing of shootings and firing on civilians even after that. So, how does that pan out in the future?
So, a ceasefire, by definition, is something very temporary, very fragile, and is never a solution by itself. It's a first stage towards something bigger. I don't see the parties having any intention to make the next step. And therefore, the ceasefire will remain partial, fragile, until either the world will put a pressure, mainly over Israel, to put a final end of the war, to leave Gaza totally and immediately without any conditions, and to open Gaza to the world. It should stop being a cage, and it is a cage. As long as this will not happen, the ceasefire can last longer or shorter. It's a very positive step. People stop being killed, but it's not a solution.
How do you see the Syrian rebellion in the context of Gaza?
I'm not sure it's connected. Maybe it is. Maybe after Hezbollah was beaten, it was easier for the rebels in Syria to take over. Maybe. maybe it has no connection. It's too early to judge. Until now, it's very promising. The new regime in Syria, until now, didn't make one single mistake. They seem peaceful. They are not having any radical declarations. I hope they'll continue.
And what do you think about rebuilding Gaza? How will that proceed? And because even now, most of Gaza has been destroyed. So how will that go? And is aid going inside now? How is it happening?
Aid is going in now quite in a meaningful quantity, but this whole concept of Gaza living on aid and reconstruction Gaza every 5 or 7 or 8 years and then destroying Gaza again, this cannot go on like this. Even the donors will not give money if they know that in 5 years or 7 years, I don't know, or 10 years, Israel will destroy Gaza again. And each destruction is worse than the former destruction. That's why would countries contribute money to something which in 5 years Israel will destroy? We see it now even in the West Bank. The United Arab Emirates rehabilitated, reconstructed the Jenin refugee camp. Israel is now destroying it again. It cannot go like this. I hope that the world will not forget Gaza, but experience told us that in the beginning everyone is ready to take part, and very quickly Gaza will be forgotten and people will live in the rubbles. It takes so much money now and so much efforts, and I'm not sure the world will invest this money and efforts, especially when there is no political solution yet. After peace will be, then it's much easier to invest, to see some kind of perspective for Gaza. Right now, Gaza doesn't have any perspective.
How do you see India's balancing act on Israel-Palestine?
Too balanced. It's not a balanced situation. And India is very balanced. But being balanced in an imbalanced situation is problematic. Situation is not balanced. There are 50,000 Palestinians who were killed. There's a whole piece of land which was totally destroyed. And there is also the Israeli price and the 7th of October attack, but it's not balanced. And India is balanced. I think the good relations between India and Israel should continue. But if India thinks that Israel is violating the international law, if India thinks that Israel is doing unacceptable things in Gaza, if India thinks that what we see in Gaza looks like something unacceptable, inhuman, then India should raise its voice. I didn't hear this voice.
And do you think that it is kind of voting in favor of a ceasefire sometimes in the United Nations? Do you think that is enough?
No. As I say, the ceasefire is not a solution. First of all, it's very important to vote in favor of a ceasefire. But what's next? The ceasefire by itself will not last if there will be no further steps. And therefore, it's not enough.
Can you tell me a little bit about India-Israel ties and how they have developed, and if you see any complicity in the genocide from the Indian side?
India and Israel became very close friends, mainly after Modi got to power and Netanyahu, and Modi found a lot of common language, which by itself is fine with me. The only problem that it is very much based on arms trade, which by itself is, Israel will not live forever only on its sword. And the concept in Israel is still that the sword, the weapons, the technologies, this can be a base for a prosper, just country, and it can't. And India is collaborating with this idea of arms deals, of buying any technology possible, part of them legal and part of them illegal, spying technologies of all kinds, which can harm also human rights everywhere. By the end of the day, it's great that India and Israel are apparently good friends. People to people, for sure it's great because Israelis love India and love to travel to India. I know many Indians love Israel, that's all fine. But even in friendship, there are moments in which a friend tells his friend what he really thinks about what he did, and that's friendship, to criticize, to say what you think about things that Israel is doing and should be unacceptable.
Thank you so much, sir.